Well, hi everybody. It's Kim Winter from Logistics Executive Group, and welcome to today's book review session, part of our series on assessing and introducing authors from various books. We've got a very interesting character who's joined us today, a gentleman from New Zealand, but with Polynesian background, and I'll introduce him in a minute. But first of all, I want to introduce my co-host, one of our senior colleagues here at Logistics Executive Group, Aindrea Sewell. Hey, Aindrea.
Hey, Kim. Thanks for having me today.
Thanks so much. And to our very special guest from New Zealand, this gentleman has a glorious international rugby career in his early days, played in many countries in the world, which we're going to hear about, and has also developed extensively into the area of leadership, and empowering leadership, empowering people. He's a consultant, he's an author, he's an innovator. He's a game changer. He's also a very proud Polynesian man, and his name is Filipo Levi. Hey, talofa, Filipo.
Hey, Kimberley, talofa lava. Amalole suifua, marelangi mama. It's great to be on this talk today, and yourself and Aindrea. It's great to have you on board to discuss transitioning and also this book, which aligns with it. So thanks for having me on board.
Thanks, Filipo. I suppose just before we start, I wanted to pay homage to a really great Polynesian game changer in New Zealand, and his name was Olsen Filipaina. His passing was announced today, and perhaps, Filipo, you could say a couple of words in respect to him.
Yeah, I think most Polynesians will remember Olsen's feats on the field and the way he paved the way for many Polynesians, on the league field, but also professional sport, throughout the 70s into the 80s, and taking those huge steps to actually move over to Australia, where pretty much Polynesians were non-existent in the National Rugby League, the NRL. I guess for being Samoan, he was Samoan, and he was Samoan and Māori. His dad was Samoan, mum was Māori from up north of Ngāpuhi. I was really just to honour his legacy and providing our generation who've come through because of the likes of him.
Yeah, thanks, Filipo. Kind words, and we pass on our respects to his whānau, to his family in New Zealand and in Samoa as well. Aindrea, from the top, I want you to take on and have a chat to Filipo about his book. He's just published a book, and we're very excited to hear about it.
Right. And thanks, Kim. And before we jump into the book, Filipo, I've been following you on LinkedIn for a while now. And I think something you posted a few months ago just really hit me with the book. It was just like, you said it was a shock to your system to be retiring in your 30s. What was that transition like for you, going from player to, I guess, normal day-to-day citizen? How was that going for you? And how was that process?
The process was I think when you go through change or disruption, when something stopped suddenly, let's take the pandemic in New Zealand. We've gone through lockdowns. Many people have been forced to change, to something they're being really uncomfortable. And I guess it's similar to, stopping playing sports or rugby in my experience. So to go through that, it was a challenging time. I guess I had a few opportunities to go back to France and Europe, but I had to really really think about what's next. And, it was to put sort of the experience for me, it'll be different for anyone going through that. I guess for me, it was a challenging time. I had to really force myself to leave the room and make sure that I keep things consistent in terms of my training, making sure I'm moving around, being physical, having that sort of structure. As an athlete, that's really important. So running down the road, having some sort of structure, because I didn't have a trainer anymore. I didn't have a program. There was no set times to be anywhere for you. So when it's taken away from you, and then you're pretty much in an environment where you have to choose what to do next, you have to decide and be responsible. That was the hardest bit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's definitely something I've heard a lot of athletes struggle with, and you see a lot of the stories come out in the media. So right now you're working a lot with the Rugby Union Business Club, and I want to know a little bit more about what you do with them. And was that something that existed when you were a player, or is it something you're kind of doing now because you wish it existed when you were playing, or in the heights of your playing days?
I think that's a great question. I think throughout my family, you know, I've seen, you know, my mother, you know, who creating things out of nothing, you know, getting, you know, she started the first Otago Rugby Samoan team. You know, she just created something, and then I was part of that, as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, and then she was quite. She had that the entrepreneurial spirit, and I think she had it. You know, she got that from her granddad, or well, my granddad, her dad. He was a bit of a quite. You know, he ran a bit of a successful business in Samoa. So I guess learning from her, and then I've always had the knack of, you know, I want to do something. I want to be able to create something and help empower, inspire, and be with a team. So in my last few years in the UK, especially in Nottingham, is when I started to really look into creating products. So I started to make Samoan food for my teammates. So I started to make some coconut buns. You know, just made it and see how they'll take it, and then had some good feedback. I met with a guy from church, a business guy from church, and I met him, and then went through a bit of a process, and to try and test the market. But then it came to a time where I had to go back to New Zealand because my contract finished, and also that meant that my visa finished as well. Yeah. So and then came back, and then pretty much came back to New Zealand. Played one more season for Tasman Marcos, and then pretty much that was it for the journey. But I've always had that something, you know, I wish there was something there for players to understand about business or understand. And look, rugby is it's such a complex world. There's so many other things that are prioritized. So it's the onus is on the player to find that, to find that for them. So clubs are busy trying to win the game, you know, for the week, you know, training. Those are the priorities. So, but I wish there was a club there to maybe go and learn from other rugby players or other athletes who have started business, you know. So that was the motivation. A few years later, where I started a rugby business club and bring guys who have been through the transition or just starting the businesses and talk about that transition away from rugby or sports and into creating their business.
Oh, that's a great story. And I hope you can send me some of those coconut buns, because that sounds good as well. I wish someone on my team would make me coconut buns. No, that's really cool though. So I want to jump to the book, because this is supposed to be about the book club, right? Did you always want to write? Is that something that you wanted to do, or did that just come naturally after the Rugby Business Club? Or your natural writer?
Yeah, no, probably not a natural writer. I mean, I struggled throughout high school. You know, I was always getting things wrong and just passing or failing. And, but it wasn't until I went to university and I had to learn how to type. I had to force myself to actually learn to type. And so, I wished I learned how to type at high school. But so, you start one finger, two fingers, and a year later, 2 years later, you're quite not too bad. So I guess it started from that, from sort of university and then writing essays, and they're quite dry. And then I graduated many years later. It wasn't your 3 years; it was many years later. But then I ended up, with some skills of writing. So, but it was a hard journey. It wasn't easy. And then and then many years later, going to business in 2018, full time. One of my first business coaches told me, you need a book, so to leverage that book, to show people your IP, to tell them what you have. So he's been pushing me this for a couple of years. So I decided, okay, we'll see what happens. And then before I started, my wife started her book and she completed it. And I saw her journey. So that was great. So she went through a similar transition to my rugby transition. Her journey was from pretty much following me all around the world to going back to New Zealand and then joining the Les Mills fitness team, and she became a bit of a global athlete. So she was a bit like the All Blacks, they travel around the world. So she represented the Les Mills New Zealand team all around the globe. She came back, and then all of a sudden it was pretty much taken away from her. So I guess I saw that journey, I saw that disruption. I went through that, and I had to really be understandable. I didn't really understand what she was going through, but I knew mentally, yep, I know what's happening. So she wrote that in a book called From Fat to Fierce, because she went through that process of her burnout in fitness. I'm probably not the best person to talk about it. You probably need to interview her, Kim.
Yeah, we'll get her on the podcast.
That's a winner.
So from that on, I saw that, and I thought, okay, it's 2 years later, and then 2020 first lockdown came in New Zealand. When the first COVID, that was going everywhere globally. That's when I thought, okay, I've got a bit of time here to start to put my thoughts on paper. But also, I already spoke about the actual tackle as an acronym, as a keynote. So I've already spoke about it for a few years. So it was good to now write that as a process in the book, so I can put all my thoughts down of what I went through, what worked, what didn't. So I wanted a book that could honor those who have helped me, because as athletes or whatever you do in life, if you're successful, it wasn't because of you. There's always someone behind you. There's always someone that's there for you. If you're a big CEO, someone's cleaning up your rubbish. Someone's, the receptionist there smiling, well, I think most of the time. So there's always people there as part of the team to, help the organization move forward. So the book is about honoring my parents first, and also showing them the sort of that vulnerable journey as a male Samoan, where it's sort of the unspoken to speak about feelings or speak about being vulnerable. And so, we're meant to be very muscular, that whole the masculine sort of stereotype, physical specimen, whatever. So, but then to try to break down those barriers or stereotypes is to, hey, I'm going to write something because I've been through around the world. I've seen people struggle, and I also struggled. I had people who helped me. And I need to write this down because one person might be going through the same experience as I did.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important, because I think representation as well matters. I think people seeing other people who look like them, sound like them, have similar upbringings, it's easier to understand their story as you get older. I see you have a stack of books in the corner. Is one of them your book, 7 Truths? You just want to wave it up? In the back corner, is that one of them?
No, that's
yes.
one of them.
So 7 Truths of a Professional Athlete. Before you wrap up, do you want to give our audience a teaser of one of the truths?
Oh goodness, I think I had to buy the book when it released. But look, it was something that I think the second lockdown last year, in Auckland, I actually wrote something on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I wrote something, 7 Truths of a rugby player. And it sort of went trended. It sort of trended and it sort of went viral. And then someone shared it on Instagram and Facebook. And all these comments, I thought, okay, that's quite. I might use that as a sort of second title, because the 7 Truths is what I've experienced, but what I've seen. So one of the truths is that you're only an injury away from losing your job.
Yeah.
So that's one truth. That's a fact. I've been through injuries. In the book, I talk about, nearly losing my eye. And I had a blowout fracture, which I didn't realize for 2 days because I was in bed with a delayed concussion. And that was against Sewell Sharks. I was playing for Manu Samoa. It was the trial game before the World Cup in 2007. So the first game was against the Springboks, but I missed the game because someone punched me in a mall. So I went through that surgery, and then I could have lost an eye and game over. That's it. So that's one big thing. That truth, it was personal. But for me to move forward and to recover, listen to the expertise of the medical team, and to trust the process. There is a healing process of about 2 months, to not fly for 2 weeks because, blood pressure, to the brain and all that sort of stuff. I need to make sure that I had to look after myself first. But that was tough not going to the World Cup that year. I was a week away. So that's one. Number two, you're perfecting 7 truths. I'll give you number two, eh? So number two is your performance is scrutinized daily. So you're judged on a daily occurrence. What you eat, to your fat test, to your water intake, to what your urine looks like. Are you hydrated? Are you dehydrated? There's drug tests now randomly. They turn up out of nowhere. You got video or DVD or reviews of the game, of training. So every day is where you're scrutinized, and that's something as a professional athlete will know intimately. They have high standards. They want to reach those standards. And if you don't get there, you have a sense of, oh no, I'm letting the team down. I'm letting myself down. And that could go back to the first one, where you're only injury away from losing your job, or you're only a bad performance from you losing your job. So so I guess that's what high athletes we know. We're judged every day.
No, that's very, very interesting. I think I sprained my MCL 2 months ago, and I was worried because we were going to have a tournament this month that's been cancelled due to COVID. So, and it was a big worry. The minute it happened, I was like, I won't be able to play. So I think I'll definitely be reading this book, because those first truths that you shared have just been like, yes, that resonates. Before we wrap up and I hand over to Kim, can you just tell the audience where they can find you, your website, LinkedIn, or where they can get the book?
Yes. So I'll be releasing on the 16th of February, which is New Zealand time. So it will be, that day will be the open cart day. So you need to go to tackleyoursuccess.com. It will be open on the 16th. Don't try to go now because it's not open. so it's Tackle Your Success. So there it goes there, and .com. So they'll be there. And I can't wait to just let it go now. So yeah. And also, sorry. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well. It's add me as a friend.
Okay.
So you've seen some interesting stuff from you on LinkedIn this week, Filipo. So some awesome work that you're doing. So Aindrea, colleague, logistics executive group, and national player for the country of Jamaica. Yeah. And what club in Dubai, Jamaica?
The Dubai Sharks, big club.
Dubai Sharks, very big club, very proud. Saw them play at the Sevens. Thanks, Aindrea, for co-hosting and quarterbacking this interview. Filipo, man, learning so much from you and hearing about your journey. And of course, this is the book review, but our audience can also see us have a chat with you on your story as a coach, as a previous professional player. Man, you've played in so many countries. You're a fringe All Black player. You played for Mano Samoa, which I suspect we'll talk a lot more about and what that meant to you. And you're a very proud Polynesian man in a very Polynesian country, New Zealand. So we look forward to talking further with you. So Filipo Levi, Aindrea, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you all again. Thanks for joining us, folks.
Cheers.
Thanks, Kim.